good day, and welcome to Couch Time. I'm your host, Richard Wilson, and we're here today with a very special guest, good friend of mine, Tony Strowder of Strowder's Funeral Home. Hey, Tony,
Hey, what's
what's
going
up?
on, Richard?
What's
How
up?
you
That's my
doing?
man. I've been talking about this interview for a long time. It's been a long, drawn out process to put all this together, and so I'm honored to have the brother here, especially because, I've been hearing a lot of folklore, a lot of stereotypes about the funeral business, about, people doing this and that. So today we have somebody here who can speak to that very, 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 very issue. And so, real briefly, I want to say this: me and Tony, we met under strange circumstances, man. I just come home from the joint, and I don't know. I always wanted to work here, even as a child. I just used to come up here, and bug his dad, and I came up here, and it was crazy because, he was in the process of putting a new funeral home together, and busy, busy, busy. And I kept coming up there, and it was like, man, I'm aggravating this dude. I could see. And one day I said, hey, look, man, I know you busy, but I just want to offer you a proposal. And he was like, well, what was that? I said, well, I want to work here, and I'm gonna offer you a proposal that I'll work here for 40 hours for nothing. And at the end of that 40 hours, if I can prove to you that I can be an asset to this company rather than a liability, you'll hire me at a reasonable salary. He said, man, I wouldn't want you to work here for nothing. I said, I'm not. After I work so hard, you'll hire me. He hired me. And so, with that being said, I'm going to give you Tony Strowder, and I just want to hear who you are and the history of Strowder's Funeral Home. You got the mic.
Thanks, Richie. It's amazing that that's over 22 years ago almost
Hmm.
that we met, and we've been brothers ever since.
Absolutely.
So, you're my
Absolutely.
cat.
Absolutely.
Period.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I'm Tony Strowder. I'm the youngest of the Strowders
Hmm.
of the funeral home.
Hmm.
Okay, my parents are the ones who founded Strowder Funeral Chapel back in 1951.
Mm.
And just to put things in perspective, if I had to write a book about myself,
Hmm.
I would say that I was born 13 years before my birth. Okay?
Explain that.
Because the funeral home was here like 13 years before I was born.
Hmm.
So, I don't remember not having the funeral home in my life. It's
Hmm.
always been a part of me. I can't tell you a first of anything. I
Gotcha.
can't tell you a first of my first time seeing a deceased person,
Hmm.
going to a funeral, or
Hmm.
anything.
Hmm.
As a matter of fact, as a toddler, I was probably helping my parents do stuff around the funeral home. If it wasn't just cleaning up or whatever, we was doing it. And,
Hmm.
I'm not the only one. I have three other siblings. I got two brothers and a sister,
Hmm.
and they were in it much earlier than me because I am the youngest one. But I've been licensed to practice professionally since the late 80s. I think I got my license in 1988.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
went to mortuary school in 86, 87. Served a 2-year apprenticeship. But
Hmm.
I mean, I pretty much knew the rudimentary of everything about the funeral business long before I went to mortuary school.
Hmm.
But here I am now. I've been practicing now for over 30 some from 35 years ago, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I'm still at it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And here I am.
Yeah, man. And man, I had the privilege and opportunity, right, to get hired here and work for a number of years. and to see what goes on firsthand. And one of the things I notice in the funeral industry is that uh, it's pretty isolated in that most of the people who work in the intricate parts of funeral homes come from within the inner circle, like the family. Because you letting somebody in your house, so to speak, and it's a trust factor and all that. And again, I was privileged to get a job here. Uh, I want to talk about your dad, man. You know, I used to go up to the funeral home, man, when I was a kid, man. I gotta say, probably about 10, 11 years old, man. And I just had this morbid curiosity about Strowder's funeral home, man. And, you know, I would come up here, man. And I remember in the parking lot having conversations with your dad and just asking him a slew of questions, man. And he would always, one thing I could take from this, he would always be patient. Even in his manner, in his face, in his gestures, like he was interested in what I was asking him, and he answered it. And I never forgot that. He would talk about his pride in the community as a black man and an entrepreneur. And how there were times, and I want you to speak to that too, Tony. There was times coming out of this neighborhood where in the '60s and early '70s, money wasn't that affluent for blacks, and so he said there was times where he felt that every family should have a dignified funeral. you know. And certainly we in the business of business, but yet there's times where that's can you talk about some of that?
Yeah, well, number one, my father, he was a character. Everybody loved him.
Yeah, they
He was
did.
a character. And he did have a lot of civic pride in his neighborhood. My father grew up on the west side. He went to West Tech. If you go over to the west side, there's even a church, Second Calvary. They had Strowder Hall on it because my grandparents helped find the church.
Oh wow.
Right, and he was the first baby of the church. So, when they first moved to Cleveland many years ago, back in the 20s. But this is a ministry, and my father would tell you in a minute. He was a very humble guy. He may not have come across humble to a lot of people, because he was always very proud about his funeral home and whatever else. But you ask him, and says, "Dad, what about the business? What makes your business go?" He says, "Well, Tony, it's not me. It's our families. You got to treat your families right."
Yes.
And he
Yeah.
got that.
Yeah.
This
He
is a
did.
ministry to him. It's a
Yeah.
ministry to us.
Yeah. It is.
Um,
It is.
if you're just in it just for the money, your funeral home is not going to work.
Right.
And I'm not just saying it about Strowder Funeral Home. I'm talking about our historic neighborhood funeral homes. You can put many names on them here in Cleveland. And I think that if you go to each one of us, and you'll see that historically they were about trying to keep their neighborhood decent. This is a service that you cannot not have.
Absolutely.
Okay, and it's something that people just cannot handle on their own. So you need a funeral home. You need a funeral director, somebody to undertake the task that you gotta take care of.
And just watching you do that and maintaining the ethics and the pride that extended beyond what people could see. There's the prep room and there's the morgue where I spent many hours under your tutelage and working beside you, and I can attest to the fact that you were serious about the handling of people's loved ones. And it's real easy to get complacent after you in the funeral business years and years and years. Not to be disrespectful, but just to be sometimes comfortable back there. You get to talking about the game or whatever, and you put your hand on somebody or move somebody a little rougher than they should, and you would always, hey man, look, and get on people get on us for doing that. And I appreciate that because that's something the families actually don't see that I can attest to, that I've been at other spots where that's not practiced. And I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, that's big. Because when people entrust their loved ones, especially in death, to you, your care, man, that's everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's everything. And so, uh, hey man, let's have some fun. Man. I remember you telling me one time that you were in the barber shop, right? And a
I know where
dude,
you're going with this.
and a dude was in there, shooting his mouth off because you know how people do at a barber shop. And he went into the story about the funeral home, and I'm not sure what his affiliation was, but he stood on this. He know that dead people, it's been cases set up at the morgue or
Right.
at the funeral home. Now you've been in the business all your life, and have you ever seen somebody dead set up?
I've never, not once in my life have I ever seen anything like that.
Like that.
Right. This is you talk about. I just came back. I was in college. I graduated. I moved back to Cleveland. This is like in 1986. I'll tell you the year. And I went to one of the local barbershops. I'm not gonna say no names.
Right.
And there was a guy in there, and he was popping off about he was in Alabama, Mississippi, and his uncle or grandfather or somebody had a funeral home, and they spent half their time trying to keep people from sitting up.
Right, right.
And I'm not trying to get in nothing.
What's your haircut?
It's my business. I'm staying out of
Right.
your business.
Right, right.
So I'm just sitting there. I kind of like have an internal smirk on my face, like
Mm,
whatever. I don't
mm,
want this mess. But then the barber was cutting somebody's hair in the chair, and he said, "Well, there's Mr. Strowder right there."
right.
And then the dude looks at me and starts saying, "Hey, Mr. Strowder,
Tell
tell
her.
him about the people who sitting up all over there and blah blah
Right,
blah."
right, right.
And I look at him. I just kind of smile. And I just kind of wait. Yeah, man, whatever,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
I ain't trying to get enough.
Right, right.
He said, "Come on, Mr. Strowder, tell him."
Tell him.
I said, "Man, I ain't never seen like that in my life." Dude actually got offended.
Yeah.
He got offended.
Yeah.
Man. He wanted to kind
Yes.
of word me up about it.
Yes.
So needless to say, I think that was the last time I went to Brother's barbershop because I'm like, why you gonna put me in that position? I'm just sitting here waiting for my hair to get
And,
cut. But these are some of the things people got wise tales
yes.
about the
Yes.
business,
Yes.
urban myths
Yeah.
and stuff. And,
Here's another one.
okay.
Say I'm 6'6". They tell me, certainly in the black community, they gonna cut your legs off because you can't fit in the casket.
Well, no, that's not true. I have never witnessed it. Now, I'm not going to say that I've seen everything in the funeral business,
Right,
but I safely could say that I've seen more than 95% of everything in
right,
the funeral business.
right.
I have never seen such a thing
As
as that. They have caskets that accommodate, larger people.
order a larger casket.
Right, right.
But then and here's another
I
one.
mean, I guess there's a cost that comes with that a lot of people may not be able to
That's when they
afford. But we do the best we can. What would we have?
y'all not back there. No, yeah.
Nah.
And here's another one. Say, for instance, okay, here's another one people come up with. These are the questions they told me to ask you. Do the funeral homes dump the people out of the casket and resell it?
Well, I'm not going to say never has that happened because I don't know. I've heard some bad characters at funeral homes and different places, but I have never witnessed that. Nor do I have a story about anybody doing anything like that.
Right.
Number one, it's not worth the effort and the time to do such a thing
Yeah.
because caskets are delicate.
Yeah.
When you put a person in a casket,
Yeah.
that's their casket.
Right.
Trust me.
Right. Trust me. Yeah.
And to refurbish and to make a casket, most caskets look back the way new. Sometimes it's just not worth it. You get a new casket. It's not worth the effort of taking somebody out of a casket. And Richard talked about how we treat people in the back. There is one thing: we treat everybody with dignity. Okay, and I'm not just saying that. This isn't like a PR shoot or anything. It's like I said, it's a ministry, and the dignity of people is very important, and how we treat them, and that exactly what we say we're going to do, we do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if it's something impossible, then we let you know we can't do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But no, we've never taken anybody out of a casket. Never resold a casket. I've never seen anybody do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's just another
Wives'
urban myth.
tale. Here's another one.
Okay, keep them coming. This is fun.
Hey, you got here. She is 360 odd some pounds, and the family claims you put way too much embalming fluid in this woman. This is the reason why she's bloated.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is kind of like a serious question here.
Mm-hmm.
Serious kind of urban myth. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Most people pass away from something.
Mm-hmm.
Most people go to hospitals. They're getting medical treatments.
Mm-hmm.
What we do in the funeral home is not magical.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's based in science. It's based in history of using chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
That is not natural. The
Mm-hmm.
natural way of a person passing is for them to decompose
Mm-hmm.
and go back to the earth, to the ashes, and the ashes to earth to earth. There's a
Mm-hmm.
reason why we say that.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're doing is we're delaying that,
Mm-hmm.
but we're also fighting against the things that people were treated with in the hospitals, what they
Mm-hmm.
died from as a disease.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, we're we have to fight up the family's mental picture of their loved one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
what a person has in their mind about what they remember their loved one is
Mm-hmm.
may or may not necessarily be
Mm-hmm.
what you see in the casket.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing that the funeral director, the
Mm-hmm.
embalmer, or anybody else
Mm-hmm.
could do any different.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the death of a person is the actual what you see.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we restore a person with the embalming
Mm-hmm.
to the best of our ability.
Mm-hmm.
Some things only God can take care of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to say that it's impossible to swell a person's features with fluids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I would say that it doesn't happen very often. More
Mm-hmm.
than likely, when people have major complaints, it's because of something that's not controllable by
Mm-hmm.
the embalmer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not going to say all the time. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say 90% or better. The majority of the time, it's something that's out of the control of the technician,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they have a decent amount of years under their belt.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And again, not being facetious, funny about it, light about it. Hey man, look, if you get to the funeral home and you 350, you came here like that. That had nothing to do with the embalming. So yeah.
And plus,
Let's
can I have to say
sure.
this? This is probably one of the first times
Mm-hmm.
that you have really looked and you studied your loved one.
Yeah.
They're laying down
Yeah.
in a position that you're not used to seeing somebody.
Right.
If they're not smiling, their face muscles are not moving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There are things about a person's personality that you see and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that you really don't notice them moving.
Mm-hmm.
We can't make a person necessarily smile.
Absolutely.
Some people we can, some people we can't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a thing that we try to make a person as pleasing as possible to their loved one.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, a lot of it is your perception
Mm-hmm.
or your idea of what they look like
Mm-hmm.
in life. You want them to match what you see in the casket.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, people look better.
Sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes.
Sometimes they do.
I've
Sometimes,
seen it. I've seen
yeah.
it. Let's talk about caskets. What is the most expensive casket you can buy?
To be honest with you, Richie, I don't know. I don't do many funeral arrangements,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I do know that there's a Promethean casket and the Omega casket.
Those are the two.
Yeah, right. Those are some of the more expensive
Those are
ones.
man. Those are like Michael Jackson had. That's what Whitney
Gold
Houston
color.
had. Yeah.
Exactly. 48. What is it? 48-ounce bronze caskets,
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're expensive. You're looking at paying well into the 20s, maybe
Mm-hmm.
$30,000
Mm-hmm. Easy.
for some of these caskets.
And so, Alpha 105, that's probably not going to happen as readily as it would happen in some other places. So what's the most, I don't want to say the cheapest casket, but less expensive casket
Well, I mean, it's no secret. The least expensive caskets are going to be your cloth covered caskets.
Mhm.
They're made of fiberboard.
Mhm. Mhm.
They're called they're called cloth covered caskets.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
they're made by different manufacturers.
Mhm.
Some of them are different colors,
Mhm.
but a lot of people say, "Oh, just give me a wooden box." Blah blah blah. That's the cheapest thing going. No, wooden boxes are not cheap.
Mhm. Absolutely. No, they're not.
They're not
Not. They're
cheap.
not.
You know, some of your more expensive caskets are made out of wood,
Mhm.
and some of your more expensive caskets are not made out of fancy wood.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Would you say there's a big markup in the casket industry?
well, I mean, I won't say there's a big markup, but there are levels
Mhm.
of that they go through. First
Mhm.
of all,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
have your casket manufacturer.
Mhm.
They sometimes sell directly to the funeral homes,
Mhm. Mhm.
but then sometimes there's another party that
Mhm.
gets them, and
Mhm.
they sell their caskets to the funeral homes.
Mhm.
And then the funeral home has to have, this is where they make profit, is this in some of the markup in the caskets.
Do you think that now, as you know, as the game has changed, lightweight, like you say, there's a third party involved. I, is that um, is that sort of detrimental sometimes in that you don't exactly know what you getting until the funeral? As far as you ordering from a casket store or something, it's not like the funeral home handling that. They're saying, well, this was sent here, so if the handles come off of it, during the course of the funeral, we're not responsible for that.
Now that has happened. I've had over the years. I don't know. Remember where the family got their casket,
Mm-hmm.
but with the onset of third-party sellers
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
caskets,
Mm-hmm.
online caskets, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of caskets are made overseas.
Mm-hmm.
China,
Mm-hmm.
Thailand,
Mm-hmm.
whatever else, and they're made to resemble American-made caskets.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, Batesville casket.
Mm-hmm.
Batesville casket is a very nice quality casket.
Mm-hmm.
And the caskets that you can buy online sometimes they may look nice on the outside,
Yeah.
but when you look on the inside, you see where there's a difference. You see where screws are not
Mm.
covered on the inside.
Mm.
You see where joints are not as nice as
Mm-hmm.
they were in the other caskets.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a casket. How can I put it? I'm not a casket expert.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I could look at a casket, generally tell you what the name of the casket is,
Mm-hmm.
and I could tell you generally if it's a nice casket.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell you what it's made out of and the characteristics of that casket.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a expert on how they seal the joints here in this casket
Mm-hmm.
versus
Mm-hmm.
that casket, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's evident when you see some third party caskets coming into the funeral home that
Mm-hmm.
they are not of the same quality.
Okay. I got a quick question.
Sure.
Have you ever been in a funeral home, man, at late night? Like, 'cause you do a lot of early morning embalming. 'Cause have you ever been creeped out, man? Like something happened, man. It's unexplainable. It's unexplainable.
Be honest with you, not really, man. Where I get creeped out sometimes
Mm-hmm.
is like, for instance, this fireplace that you're sitting next to. It has a flue on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and sometimes the air hits that flue,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll hear this thing, especially if you're here at night. And I don't think it's that has anything to do with the deceased people. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking, hey, maybe somebody broke into the funeral home.
Right, 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 right,
I'm more scared
right,
of what goes on the outside than I
right.
am what goes on the inside. Now, who is this coming? It's kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Okay, can you pause this for a minute?
Yeah.